Alright, got my Chevy van, the 350, and I'm going to change out the tensioner pulley and the idler pulley, which is not too easy to see, but once you remove this air duct right there. One of the reasons I'm making this video is because a lot of these videos for Chevy trucks and the engine compartment looks so much different than a G-VAN or a Vandura. So hopefully this helps. At least you'll know what you're looking for. So this whole piece is one. Some people think you can buy this separately. I don't know if that's true. I got the whole contraption to replace. That was locating the right pulley. I got two different ones that claim they were for a K code 350 V8, which is what I have, and from Napa, and they did not fit. One, the back spacing wasn't correct, and one, the front spacing with the washer was also not correct. So one, the back side didn't stick out far enough, and one, the front side wasn't recessed enough for the hardware I had, and maybe that could have been worked around with different hardware, but that's something to look out for. So the part that's working for me is 231107. I actually had to go back in my old photos and find where I had snapped a picture of this however many years ago to as a record to help me remember if I ever need to do this again. It came in handy. But these other pulleys, idler pulleys specifically, did not match up to my particular engine, but obviously they work for some 350 V8s, or else they wouldn't be selling them as for. They look very similar. So what's interesting is they look super identical. I mean, to the eye, they look the same. But this one, you can see where my washer rubbed a little scratch in it when I tried to screw it in, and it didn't recess all the way. This one's more recessed. You can feel it there. Obviously, it's going to be hard to see in the video, but this one is not as recessed. So that was one problem I had. And this one looked right. But the washer, there's a slight difference in here. You can see there's this space right here. I don't know if you call that beveling, whereas this one just goes straight down. So that one, there's another one from Napa that didn't work for me. So, man, I don't know how to know what Napa part is going to work, but maybe buy all the options they have. If you can't take it off, like if it's your daily driver and you can't take it off and walk in with it and be like, and match it up, obviously that would be simplest. But if it's your daily driver and you can't go to the auto parts store without your vehicle running, then maybe buy all the options they had. I tried that with Napa. I tried to outsmart them, and that still didn't work. But it seems like I'm gonna be able to stick with the same one I had, which I was trying to like get a better one. Obviously, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't help. So I'm back to the old Duralast. So all that to say, just because they look externally similar, they might not be. So just be really careful of that, wary. Obviously, somebody has a 350 with those pulleys, so I don't know how to know who has what, but maybe someone knows and they can help the people in the comments out. Then I also have this tensioner. Well, we're going to see how that fits, because this looks backwards to me. Oh my. So I pulled this one out from Napa. It does not look the same. So make sure you have a breaker bar. You'll just waste a lot of time trying to jimmy rig something. You just need this tension released on the belt. And the easiest way is to have a lot of leverage. I've done it without, with just a shorter, or attempted to with a shorter socket. If you have this, you can just with one hand just pull that out. See how the belt got loose there? Alright, belt is loose there. See, I was able to do that with one hand with the long breaker bar. That was a 15mm socket on that. So with the belt off, you have access to the things that we're going to do, which is idler pulley down there and swapping out this tensioner pulley here. On this one, you have a bolt on the back you have to be holding with another wrench. Otherwise, this is just going to spin. Just watch out when you're doing this. If your vehicle's been on, the radiator is probably going to be hot. So just careful you're not burning your wrists. And this is another 15mm bolt on the idler pulley. Also, don't forget that this fan is not exactly symmetrical, so there's certain blades that are further apart than others, and that's for ease of access. So just something to keep in mind so you're not battling super hard. Alright, so I've got this guy loosened, my socket. I'm just gonna pull that out. Alright, so now I need to match up the hardware, see how it fits. So there's a spacer that's behind the back of this. First I'm going to try to spacer out. Alright, that seems to work. And the hardware looks like it's going to fit. Alright, that fits way better than the one I incorrectly bought from Napa. Or that was, we'll say, was recommended by the internet to me on Napa's website. But that could have been avoided, I'm sure, if I had just walked in with this. But like I said, alright, I got the new pulley on, and I'm just going to finger tighten that. Just make sure that it does in fact spin. Like I said, the back spacing's not right with the hardware. It won't. You can tighten it all the way down, it won't even spin. Obviously, if it's spinning, you're good. If it's not spinning, well, I think you can figure that out. And I'll just tighten it up with the socket. Burn my arm on the radiator. Alright, nice and spinny. Alright, so assuming you're swapping out the entire tensioner setup, the bolt you want to remove is not the one in the pulley. That is just to release the tension. You actually want to take off this big boy right there. And that requires a wrench on the rear of it as well to hold it, because otherwise it will spin. So when you get these parts, definitely match them up before you go to taking things apart. Alright, so I have an 18mm socket here and an 18mm wrench behind it on the nut. Need two hands to spin these. I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so you can see that's the back. There's the nut. So as it gets looser and looser, maybe put your hand back there and hold it instead of the wrench. That way you don't lose this nut down in the engine area. And also, it gets really hot. If this thing's been driven recently, you'll want some gloves for sure. Otherwise, this thing's like still hot to the touch, even with gloves on. Alright, so you're gonna need this hardware out of there. I'm gonna size it up with our new one. So there's a little metal hex nut type thing there that's just really gonna align with that hole on the right there. Which is nice. You don't have to wonder if you have it in the right direction. If it's lined up with the main bolt, then that little guide is going to just drop into place into that hole on the bracket. So now I'm just going to finger tighten this on the back of the bolt behind here. I've got this guy finger tight with the bolt with the nut on the back, and now I can go back to the wrench and socket to tighten it up. Alright, so just doing a little test with the breaker bar, and as you can see, it's working. So I'm stoked on that. Now, throw that belt back on there. Alright, so the rule with the belt is smooth on smooth, grooved on groove. So, see the grooves and things like this compressor pump, and so you want grooves to match up with grooves. So, obviously the back of the belt is smooth. Then you might have to jump underneath just to line it up on the lowest pulley there. Alright, when you're doing this, my other big tip is to take photos before you take off the belt. That is sometimes easier than reading the chart. That way you can just see where everything was when you started. We have a second person who can hold this up and not put it over the alternator, that's a bonus too. Alright, so I got the belt back on there. I just want to like check that the grooves are in the right spot. Sometimes they can get hung up on the lips of these wheels. Like for instance, underneath there. You just want to make sure they're like inside the groove properly. Go underneath, look at the same. Get a different vantage point. And then also double check one more time before you turn it on that you ran the routing right. Because once this van gets going, you don't want to have a loose belt getting chopped up there. So you can just follow the pattern. This is the top left there, and this is the idler pulley is this black one there. So over, under, over, etc. Alright, I checked the belt path, went underneath, made sure the belt wasn't hung up on any of these lips of any of these pulleys or wheels, and everything looks good. I'm gonna turn it on, see how we did. One of the reasons I'm not showing how I did the belt was because this, depends on if you have AC and if you have a smog pump and things like that. So different 350s might have different accessory pulleys and wheels on the front. So that's the story on that. So if yours doesn't look identical, don't freak out. It's the same process. Don't forget to go back and tighten things up before you turn it on. I'd already done that to the lower idler pulley. I'm going to double check this guy here on the tensioner pulley. So hope that helps. You have an idea what you need to do for your G-Van, and let's keep these G-Vans on the road.